You're listening to DraftKings Network.
You know that sound. It's the sound of money hitting your Venmo account, a friend paying you back, or maybe it's getting cash back from your favorite business when you pay with the Venmo debit card, or it's realizing you can pay with Venmo at checkout at thousands of brands. Now, there are so many more ways to answer the question, what's your Venmo? Download Venmo today. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. pursuant to license by MasterCard International Incorporated. Dosh Cashback terms apply.
It's winter, and you can now get almost anything you need for the coldest months of the year delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a ski slope delivered, but you can get dish soap delivered. Sunshine, that's a no. But a bottle of wine, that's a yes. A snow angel, sorry, no. But angel hair pasta, Uber Eats can definitely get you that. Get almost anything delivered with Uber Eats. Order now. Alcohol in select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details.
Welcome to the Big Suey, presented by DraftKings,
Why are you listening to this show?
the podcast that seems very similar to the other Dan Le Batard podcast.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to apologize for that.
In fact, the only difference seems to be this imaging.
I have been tempted in restaurants just walking past tables to grab somebody's fries that if they're just there. That hasn't happened to you guys?
I've done it.
And now, here's the marching man to nowhere, Fat Face, and the habitual liar.
This episode of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Stugotz has been real chatty during the breaks. He was just ripping me nonstop. I don't even know what the starting point of you ripping South Beach Sessions was. I walked into the room and you and Cote were howling with laughter, and it was about South Beach Sessions, and I don't even know what it is that you were laughing about or what triggered the thought.
We were discussing how we thought the last segment ended very, very well, and Greg prefers you to end a segment with a great point as opposed to trying to get him on some sort of hard network out, you know? Because you're really good at this. Like, you make great points, and it's been a while since you took us and carried us to a break, and it felt good, and you and I were talking right afterwards, and I said, Dan, don't worry about anything else. Baby steps. You took it to the break. You made a great point. We finished right then and there, and Greg was saying, you should be Dan's producer. You should produce South Beach Sessions. And I said, if I did, I would tell him, hey, enough with putting people on the couch.
Right.
Like, let's move on to something fun and funny. You're a fun and funny guy, Dan, and all you do is serious. Get away from the serious. That's all we were saying.
I mean, in fairness, Dan has always been like that. Like before you were on Before you were on the air, I used to call you Batears, Dan Batears, because your interviewing style was you wanted, if you got a tear out of somebody you were interviewing, you'd won the gold medal. Yeah. I mean, that's the gold medal of interviewing to you is drawing emotion out of somebody.
That's not true.
Yes, it is true.
It is. It's the gold. It's your gold medal.
What medal is it? Yeah, it's not gold.
It's your gold medal.
You don't care if you break news. You just want tears.
Right.
Batears.
Yes.
Not news, break hearts.
Yes.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So Stugotz says, where's the funny? Because I believe everyone would take a look at the entirety of my career and say that on radio and television, all he did was respect television and radio way too much. The funny is here. And the serious and the deeper is there, but I'm almost fundamentally incapable of small talk. Like I don't do it very well. I don't have very much interest in it.
That's not true. You and Mike Fuentes, I saw before the show, a nice 5 to 6 minutes.
Ask him how many times that's happened since he's worked here. Go ahead.
It was like I was like noticing it. I'm like, look at Mike and Dan. They're just talking about life.
He is walking a little bit taller today.
I'm not good at that, but I will say this one is surprising to me. This one I don't have because in keeping, Chris, this might surprise you about your father. In keeping with your dad having a perspective in his 70s, and I don't know how he came about this because he's someone who is almost allergic to learning and changing. At this age, it's not something that he wants to be doing. And yet, more than anyone on earth, your father, after listening to several 2-hour South Beach sessions, will reach out multiple times and say, this is the best work you've ever done, Dan. This is the best stuff in your career that you've ever done, because your dad has some sort of want for this vulnerability that men love to mock about. Look at Pat Riley crying in the meeting because he's a coward or whatever it is you think he is. When all he is greedy about winning, and he will do whatever it is that he wants in order to win. And Jimmy Butler put him in a checkmated spot where he had to pull out my dad card. like an act of total desperation to try and get what he wanted because there were no others.
It's the final card. I mean,
I seem to have checked in with the Miami Heat recently, especially after that athletic story. I'm wondering if they were at all bothered by the dad stuff or the stuff surrounding the dad stuff, because Jimmy was dealing with this for quite some time, and he was actually performing at a very high level while he was dealing with this. And when we've talked about the Miami Heat have given liberties to Jimmy Butler that they haven't really given for other people, it's not just media availabilities, although Udonis went through something similar, and the Miami Heat absolutely acquiesced to everything that was going on in that personal life. But I would be particularly hurt by there, knowing the effort that even I just know, and it's probably a tip of an iceberg.
It's more hurtful than that, right? Like, we can do all the stuff about leaking and business play and everything else, but this is a notoriously private organization, at least in part because they like to control the messaging and the optics that has never had anything like that. So the most hurtful and embarrassing thing I would think about this, although I did not ask this question, is that you are basically showing everybody the organization's ass. Like, this is a private organization that prides itself on that is not how we behave. The lead thing is accountability, and now we'll see in Golden State with how everything is going, where and how that goes with Draymond Green, the faded embers of Draymond Green's career, trying to tell Jimmy what to do when Draymond Green ain't in charge anymore, but has always been the sort of fire of what it is that team does. But the part about this is the mess when, if we parse through the details of everything that happened here, Jimmy already had a different set of rules than anyone who's ever played here because of what Shaq and Wade and LeBron brought that forced change upon Riley, but not so much change that Riley's ever going to let somebody else be in charge.
Is there an admission that they miscalculated this thing? Because we said it as it was happening. The press release was a huge miscalculation because you backed a player in which very reputable people who are very rarely wrong said he wants out of here. And by the way, he ended up going to one of his destinations that Shams reported at the beginning, where Byrne Lee was over there saying, no, none of this is true. They totally misread that situation. Do they at least acknowledge that now? Because they backed a dude into a corner that you do not back into a corner.
They blame him.
It's awfully convenient. They got to see their own missteps here.
He blames them. That's where we are. That's how it gets there.
Well, let me ask you this. When it came time that Jimmy knew that they were not going to give him the max extension he wanted, isn't that where it all began to go sour? He realized that his future was not with this franchise,
yes.
Just as the franchise realized we're not going to win with Jimmy,
yes.
our best player.
Yes.
We've taken Jimmy as far as we could take Jimmy.
2 years, $111 million. All of a sudden, Jimmy found his joy again. That's exactly how it happened, the moment that he got his extension.
It was always about money, and it's sad that the divorce ends this way. It was always going to come to an end unless, as sort of stated before the season, as were the expectations, as were the things that Jimmy Butler echoed when he showed up at training camp. He played a bunch of games and played at a really high level, and then maybe the Heat would pay him in that sort of twilight contract or one that they believed they could still get a little more out of him. But when we got to this point, it ends in this really nasty way because it took a month and a half in the middle of the season, and we saw, Jimmy Butler take 14 free throws in his final 6 games with the Heat, now 26 in his first 2 with the Warriors. That shows you the difference in the play style.
I'm going to make this the final words on Jimmy Butler, and this will probably end up being a lie because we've talked about this even today, about 20 minutes longer than we should have. But here is Eric Spoelstra, and this part is funny to me, right? Because of how it is that we piranha feed on the details of the discord. To me, Eric Spoelstra is giving the proper voice to what all of this should be before divorce and money and business and everything get in the way. Jimmy Butler has cost himself friendships in that locker room from the way that he has handled his business. But I do believe here is the perspective that is the proper perspective to have from Eric Spoelstra about the last 5 years.
Yeah, the longer I'm in this business, the more that I feel like there's less absolutes. More things can be true. And in this case, I don't have to completely understand how we got to this point. But what I can have is a sense of gratitude completely. It was a great partnership and collaboration for 5 years. Some really deep core memories. I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for the time to be able to coach a player like Jimmy. Every once in a while, I flip through my journal from the bubble. And I get goosebumps when I take myself back to that experience. It was so intense. And from a competitive standpoint, to have the team come together in really unique, adverse circumstances and to have that real sense of a team and a spirit. Those are indelible memories that I'm going to treasure that, the rest of my career and my life.
I hate to admit this, but I'm going to steal that journal.
I want to see
I'm
what's
shocked
in there.
He has one. Yeah.
This team's missing killer mentality.
Oh, come on. That was nice what he just did.
Too nice.
Too nice.
Almost made me cry.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Just fawning over the ex.
The music.
Move on.
It's what is that though? The
I
music.
love that music.
What was that
Miami
music?
Heat had nothing to do with that music.
What was that music to make it? I could have done with just the words. I didn't need the helpful
I needed
music.
the music. Goosebumps multiple times.
You got
during that.
goosebumps?
Oh, God.
Goosebumps.
Those type of videos get me. And Spo, he's right.
No.
He's right. We should think back on this years from now. This was a good thing with Jimmy.
It was his best marriage. It was his best.
It was.
That's where I was. Like both parties acted the way that they've acted their entire careers in the end.
I saw Jeff Goldblum in like a Jurassic Park movie. It must have been the original Jurassic Park, saying some form of the equivalent of, "I'm always looking for the next future Mrs. Jimmy Butler." Like this was his best marriage, but the marriages are all going to end badly because that's how marriages tend to end.
Wait, just so we're clear, Goldblum said Jimmy Butler?
His the next future Mrs. Dr. Malcolm.
But Dan, if I told Heat fans 6 years ago, next year you're going to get Jimmy Butler, you're going to make it to the NBA Finals with him as your best player twice.
Yep.
Heat fans would take that. That would exceed every expectation.
And everybody would be thrilled to have Andrew Wiggins if you hadn't mentioned Kevin Durant.
Well, I don't know. Look, beating Boston in those two runs were great. I love listening to the radio stations out there, having that over Boston. But now that Boston took the message that the Miami Heat refused to take when they lost to Boston and totally did a drastic change to the roster and became really good after that, I think we can all agree now, with the benefit of hindsight, that it kind of ended up holding this franchise back because they kept thinking that they could go on these miraculous outlier runs that really in that sport have no precedent in a full season. You can have a lockout run, but I think it ended up tricking us into fool's gold.
I can't. I'm trying to get out, okay, guys? But everybody wants to talk Jimmy Butler, so go ahead, Cote. And I'm trying. Like everybody.
Well, football's over.
I know, but I want to talk about other things, and I can't. So please,
You have
Greg.
information, Dan.
Right.
And that's how I'm advancing the story. But I've done it for 22 minutes too long.
It was a miscalculation to think Jimmy Butler, as your best player, is going to be good enough to win championships. I don't want to say his 5+ years were a failure by any means. They were not. But let's not retrofit it. He did not win a championship. That was why they signed him. The standard here is championships. He's not Dwayne Wade. He never will be. And he's an alpha dog, though, who wanted to be treated like he's Dwayne Wade.
Okay.
And that's why he's gone.
I don't think anyone's saying he's Dwayne Wade.
Nope.
That's the final word.
I thought Spos were going to be the final word, but okay, fine. That's the final word. Another bit of bad news, by the way. I told you months ago, Valentine's Day. Keep an eye on that arbitration in Minnesota. And if you're a Heat fan, what you wanted is A-Rod not to win that arbitration because that's where the Anthony Edwards relationship is. It's with A-Rod. He's here with him in Miami all the time. And so if A-Rod had not won yesterday, the ruling on ownership of the Timberwolves in that arbitration hearing, all of a sudden Anthony Edwards, who's been pretty vocal about how bad they are this year, and they are bad with him. What's happened there is a little, I guess it's not confusing, but a whole lot of people think that Karl Anthony Towns wasn't as good as he is, and he's clearly that kind of good, because all of a sudden Anthony Edwards doesn't look quite like the league wrecker as a Timberwolf.
The next MJ?
I mean, that's the best. Last year is the best Timberwolves team we have seen. Like, it's better than any of the Garnett teams, right? Did Garnett make one Western Conference?
He made one Western Conference
with
final.
Latrell and Sam Cassell.
Yeah.
And so that's the best Timberwolf team that there has been. But there are a number of different things that I wanted it to get to today, inside and outside of sports. One of the corrections that we have to make, Stugotz, I believe that we have to now acknowledge, put this on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show, is Howie Mandel now America's greatest prankster? Because he had everyone believing that Bill Burr and Billy Corgan are brothers, and evidently all of that was nonsense, perfectly acted throughout by Bill Burr, who pretended throughout to be, and still pretends, to be irritated by the revelation from Howie Mandel and Billy Corgan that they were brothers who descended from the same father.
I've been all over this. I've seen every interview that has been done about this. I've seen the interviews in question. I've seen all sorts of investigative pieces, and I still don't know the actual answer. Bill Burr could have misspoke and creaked the door open to all sorts of scrutiny, but to contextualize this conversation, Dana White several months ago went on Howie Mandel's podcast and acted his ass off and kept the con for about a month until he was pressed on what happened there. And he's like, no, Howie actually just asked me to do this bit, and I went along with it because I think he's great. So was this the next con from Howie Mandel? Did he orchestrate two guys that have been in social media? They say, hey, they kind of look alike. Did he actually orchestrate this whole brother thing to get attention? Because it absolutely did get attention, and it's performance art, because Bill Burr, as Dan mentioned, is still keeping up with this con, still very publicly upset, and has the acting chops to actually keep it.
Bill Burr, if you're not watching, first of all, I love to hear Bill Burr talk about movies, like do critical analysis of it, but I also think Bill Burr right now is on Broadway. Is it in Glengarry Glen Ross, or is it in
Kieran
something
Culkin
else?
And Bob Odenkirk.
Jeremy Strong is somebody, Stugotz, who won Super Bowl Sunday for making fun of himself. It was his idea in that Dunkin' Donuts commercial to emerge from the method acting barrel of coffee in a way that had to identify him in words by Jeremy Strong, because you wouldn't have been able to tell from his face that it was Jeremy Strong because of the amount of coffee goop syrup that he had on his face. Jeremy Strong did that only to improve his image by hanging out with Belichick and Ben Affleck and all of these people in this commercial that make that commercial such a national winner 2 years in a row.
I love Jeremy Strong. His commitment to the bit at all times is incredible, because he's this method actor that everyone says is kind of a nightmare to be around, but all he cares about at this point is letting everyone know that he understands that. And I don't know if you guys saw, there was a Variety article with him about this commercial, and he gives these long, eloquent quotes about why he felt it was important to show people that he actually does get the joke. There was one quote that said, I got there and they had prepared a porcelain white bathtub, which I felt was all wrong. I wanted it to be something cylindrical so that I could come out of it vertically. If I was in a bathtub, it would seem like I was in repose. It's just amazing that he cared this much about the details of a Dunkin' commercial.
And totally on brand as somebody who is self-serious in even the quotes where he explains why he's trying to make fun of himself.
What an amazingly clean read there by Jeremy. I mean, you can give me 100 times to read that sentence, I would never get it right.
That is correct.
Yes.
We all know this. It's
You're gonna
not
try it
something.
now.
It's not something that even needs to be stated. It's an understood undercurrent that we have on the entirety of the show.
What does repose mean? I mean...
Hey folks, it's Mike Ryan. It is big game week, and I've got just the thing to make your big game time a Miller time. From fireside conversations to football Sundays, winter means more moments with the coolest people in your life. Make these moments even better with Miller Lite, the great tasting light beer for people who love beer. A new year is a perfect time for friends, family, and great tasting light beer. Tastes like Miller time. Miller Lite is brewed for taste. It hits different than other light beers, and when you're hosting your ultimate game day party, why don't you bring out a beautiful silver platter of that amazing white can and know you will make everybody there happy, because Miller Lite is the original light beer since 1975 and still the very best one. Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. Go to MillerLite.com/Dan to find delivery options near you, or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. Tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
Valentine's Day is coming up, and for me, there's only one place I trust, 1-800-Flowers.com. Every year, I order stunning, high-quality bouquets from 1-800-Flowers that my grandma absolutely loves.
Jessica, holy, I got the most gorgeous roses. I don't think I ever got that many roses in my whole life. Certainly not from your lovely grandfather. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you. You made my day. I mean, they are gorgeous. Never had so many roses in my whole life. 85 years. Holy shit.
And this year, we're partnering with 1-800-Flowers to make sure you're a Valentine's hero with an exclusive offer for Le Batard listeners. Double the roses for free. When you buy 1 dozen, they'll double your bouquet to 2 dozen roses. It's the perfect way to say I love you without breaking the bank. All roses from 1-800-Flowers are picked at their peak, cared for every step of the way, and shipped fresh to ensure lasting beauty. To claim your double your roses offer, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/Dan. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/Dan. The Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is sponsored by BetterHelp. We talk a lot about red flags, the warning signs that tell us to stay away from toxic relationships. But what if we spent more time looking for green flags? You know, the signs that a relationship is healthy, supportive, and worth investing in. So what are some green flags to look out for? Good communication, emotional safety, mutual respect, and someone who genuinely listens to you. Whether it's a romantic partner, a friend, or even a coworker, recognizing these positive traits can help you build relationships that will truly love you back. And if you're not sure how to spot them or even how to practice them yourself, therapy can help. Therapy can teach you positive coping skills, how to set boundaries, and how to show up as the best version of yourself. BetterHelp is accessible, affordable, and convenient. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and a fully online platform, you can find the right match for you. Plus, you can switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. So why not invest in the relationship that matters most, starting with yourself? Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/DLB today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/DLB.
Dan Le Batard.
You have some hot takes today. Joe Chestnut's a fraud.
Oh, he's on fire.
He called
Joseph
Connor
Chestnut.
McDavid overrated before the show.
What the hell was that, Greg?
Yeah, no,
I love it.
Stugotz.
Roy, let me explain it to you. And not that you need to, you know more about hockey
And this
than
is
I do.
coming from a guy that's watched Connor play 6 times.
Right.
If that.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz.
Well, to answer your question about Howie Mandel, yeah, that's a great bit. That's a great bit. And it reminded me of the late, great Andy Kaufman, whose whole career was, is he serious? Is this real? Is he acting, or is he crazy? Is this really him? And he walked that line, which is you're just not sure if it's real or not. And I think that's brilliant comedy.
I love the idea of
Howie
Mandel being the guy that pranks bald people. Everyone's bald that he does this to. Is that like what he's going for?
Well, Dana White also stormed off his set. We'll get to that in a second because that was evidently a prank. But here's the Jeremy Strong quote from that commercial. Quote, "It was my response to the idea that I don't get the joke. I'm tired of it. It doesn't really serve anything. It's false. We live in this age where there's so much attention on all the other stuff that's not the work, and we've become sort of conditioned now to talking about the work so much. It really takes away from it. We'd all be better off going back to a time where actors were able to disappear into the work, and there were more absences than presences. They're present in the work and absent outside of that." To which Al Shipley responds, giving a long, earnest interview about your Dunkin' Donuts commercial to prove you don't take yourself too seriously.
Have you heard Kieran Culkin touch on their relationship on the set of Succession? Because they have totally different approaches to everything. And Kieran Culkin still takes shots at him through the press, and I think Jeremy actually appreciates it. But Kieran Culkin could not care about direction or throwing himself into a role any less. He just wants to go. He actually worked with Jesse Eisenberg on his most recent movie, and he said it was bizarre working with a director in a scene because he'd act out the scene and the director would give him all sorts of notes, and he's like, shut up, I don't want any, like, I have notes for you.
Yeah. I only watched that movie because he'd chosen it, because I want to see what Kieran Culkin's next choices are.
Jeremy Strong on the concept of the commercial, quote, I also had a memory of my dad. I grew up in Boston, and he used to send me into Dunkin' Donuts to get 1 cream, 2 sugars. At some point, that reminded me of the Henry Wadsworth Longfellow poem about Paul Revere's Midnight Ride.
He's a better reader.
And I thought 1 creamer by land, 2 sugars by sea.
Yeah.
Should I talk about the time that I saw Jeremy Strong on Broadway? And
Minor penalty,
right
2
in the
minutes.
eye.
Delay a show.
He went to the dad, the final card.
Damn.
With the old Riley.
Yeah.
There has not been nearly enough Greg Cote in this Greg Cote Tuesday.
You want him to read?
So I ask you, Greg Cote, Aaron Rodgers leaving the Jets. We have not had enough Stugotz opinion on this as well, because that was a pretty spectacular flameout on all things Jets for them to release Jay Glazer scoopage, hide it in the Super Bowl coverage, just like, never mind about that whole thing we just did at quarterback. What a disaster.
It was a totally failed experiment, especially based on all the hoopla when they signed him, right? I mean, the Jets' Super Bowl odds went through the roof when they signed Aaron Rodgers as if he was still in his prime. Then he misses his whole first season injured except for 4 plays. And then the last season, here's the weird thing. He didn't play that terribly. His second half of his season was not bad, but he was surrounded by a bad team that he could not lift up. A failed experiment, and it's just, to me, it's like, oh, they want to move on from him? My reaction was, no, duh, of course
Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Do the Jets have any experiments that are not failed experiment? Or put another way, is to call the Jets experiment a failed experiment redundant?
Dan, it's a tricky one because I don't know what the Jets are going to do at quarterback next year. And to Greg's point, since October 27th, I think, Aaron Rodgers had 18 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Like, he was really, really good.
Good second half.
And so I understand why the Jets kind of want to walk away from all the stuff that goes on off the field with Aaron Rodgers. But what are they going to do? And how are they going to find someone who over a 10-game span throws for 18 touchdowns and 4 interceptions? They're not going to find that guy. And so I would kind of leave the door open if I'm the Jets to Aaron Rodgers coming back, because I don't think Aaron has a ton of options, and I think the Jets are his best option. And I think the Jets kind of need him.
Why are you falling in love with when he played bad defenses? He's nuked the last 2 seasons. He was bad at the start of the season. There were winnable games that he didn't win.
I know.
That Denver game nuked your season.
I know, but Mike, what I'm falling in love with is the idea of who's going to be our quarterback. Like, who is going to be the quarterback if it's not Aaron Rodgers?
Jameis Winston?
No, Jameis Winston is not good enough.
His numbers were comparable to when you shoved Zach Wilson out the door. Like, maybe it's Aaron Rodgers.
18-4, Mike.
No. Your season on the end of the season, and he closed stronger than he started. But overall, this was a very bad experiment. Wasn't worth the headlines. And also, they're probably going to lose what they invested in Devontae Adams now, too. All of it was bad. All of it was super predictable.
Yep.
He is a different quarterback. And when all the pressure is off and his friend's over there and he just wants to spam him yards down the field, he'll chuck it down and show you that he can still throw it, but he refuses to for the vast majority of the season when it mattered most. Don't fool yourself into that close.
Mike, I'm fooling myself into the fact that we don't have a quarterback. We never have a quarterback.
He's barely above a replacement level guy, though,
I would say 18
on the totality of the season.
I don't even have to look at it. I'm guessing over an 11-game span, that was the best 11-game span by a Jets quarterback in probably 2 decades.
He's only getting older, dude. It's been a very long time since we've seen him be awesome. on a consistent basis. We were talking several years, an Olympiad.
Right.
It's been a long time. That's not the way the aging process works.
I think one of the things at play here is that we have to realize LeBron James and Tom Brady are aliens. They were aliens. You can't replicate that. And now, because of Tom Brady, you just assume that somebody like Aaron Rodgers is going to be great at 37 and great at 39 and maybe play into his 40s. It doesn't happen. Tom Brady was an alien. The norm is Aaron Rodgers falling off the cliff and failing at his age.
Late 30s.
Yeah.
Right.
I happen to think, though, that, and I know this is not popular in sports shout era, I happen to think that both Stugotz and Mike are right about this because while Mike is saying barely above replacement player, Stugotz is right that in the history of the New York Jets, a 10 or 11 game run of 18-4 is absolutely not Zach Wilson. Like, I know that there are numbers that can be cherry picked to make it look, especially when it comes to wins and losses, like those tenures are the same and everyone hated Zach Wilson. But I understand how it is Stugotz gets tempted by the last 10 games only because in their absence, he has no idea what's going to play quarterback for him.
Right.
And there's not a lot of worse positions to be in, and I'm assuming they're going to draft a quarterback, but there aren't a lot of worse positions to be in football than heading into an offseason and there aren't good quarterbacks available. Or, as there is in this offseason, somebody's going to take a chance on Aaron Rodgers if he wants to play as a starter because they're in the same predicament that the Jets are in. We don't have someone, and we need to sell tickets with some hope at that position.
Someone might take Daniel Jones. Someone might take Kirk Cousins. There are some guys out there, but those aren't solutions. And I don't know if those guys are better than Aaron Rodgers. In fact, they're not.
Well, you can make an argument that Kirk Cousins is not anymore. He touts that arm injury as the reason. But you mentioned Kirk Cousins and Ben Roethlisberger towards the tail end of his Steelers time. These were teams that are like, well, we could probably be better, but what do? We're worried about what if we reset and we get worse at the position somehow. Yep. And they end up holding on to those guys maybe a little bit longer than they should have. You are not in that class.
I know.
The Steelers and the Vikings were way closer. You are not a good team. So you hit reset. You don't just keep treading water with this guy that is not going to get any younger, that is not going to be less outspoken, that is not going to bring you fewer distractions. He's just not good enough at this stage in his career to welcome all that other stuff, and you as a team are not good enough.
My biggest fear 2 years removed from the Achilles is that Aaron Rodgers will go somewhere else and have the season I wanted him to have here.
But he's not
with the New York Jets. Like I would rather him be bad with the New York Jets than be good elsewhere.
That's insane. He's not going to be good with you next year.
I know. I'll take it.
There's no way he's good.
Russell Wilson.
I like Russ.
A straight up trade.
Justin Fields.
I don't want.
Pittsburgh
I don't
makes sense for Aaron Rodgers.
There was a point I think I said earlier this year that Justin Fields should be the Jets' next starting quarterback. But that was then. This is now. That was before 18-4. I mean,
Sam Darnold reunion?
No.
Oh, come on.
Sam would never come back.
What
to
a
the
story
Jets.
that would be.
Sam would never come. At this point,
No.
You believe that the situation of the Jets is so dire that Sam Darnold would never go back there, but you'd be willing to want Sam Darnold? Because I assure you, Sam Darnold will not look without Justin Jefferson the way he does with Justin Jefferson.
I don't want him. We don't have that guy. All the best things that have happened during Sam Darnold's professional career happened away from the New York Jets. He is not going back to that dumpster fire, I promise you. And the Jets don't want him, so it doesn't matter. So.
But that's not the part that you threw it through that prism with at first. At first, you've made that 2025 is the year that Sam Darnold. That's a thing that's so. Think about what have happened the last 5 years in football that Stugotz is saying today. Sam Darnold doesn't want to come back to the Jets.
And Flacco reunion.
Right.
Well,
maybe.
Flacco.
Ooh,
I mean, that's an interesting
Flacco.
one.
There you go. Yeah.
Maybe third stop's a charm for Mac Jones.
Don't you think Sam Darnold would take less money to go elsewhere? Do you agree? Like, let's say the Jets made the biggest offer to Sam Darnold. You think he's taking it? Because I don't.
I don't really want to talk about Sam Darnold.
How about the Pastronaut? He's available.
The only reason that
we're doomed, man.
Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, he's out there if you want him. Trey Lance. I mean, there's options, Stugotz.
There are no good options.
Trey Lance.
All bad.
Trey Lance. There is no quarterback in football now that I associate with 5 interceptions more than Trey Lance.
Ooh, Tommy DeVito's a free agent, Stugotz.
No.
And you're friends with his agent. I mean, this could be perfect.
Stellato?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
What'd you promise him?
A bounty jacket. Yeah. He's still asking me for it, as if I have some control over this. He's a weird guy, but I love him. I love Stellato.
I think my favorite behind-the-scenes text that was sent during Radio Row Week was Stugotz sending Stellato a text about 2 hours after we had him on saying, hey, I found socks for you if you still need them.
Radio Row is a lot of fun that way.
That's what it's all about, man.
Yeah, he left.
Yeah.
He goes, oh, rookie move. I forgot to put on socks. We're like, how do you forget to put on socks with Jordans? Like, how did you leave your house today?
It's not loafers, it's Jordan.
No, it was. It was sneakers. Like, rookie move, forgot to put on socks.
That's psychotic.
Ow.
That's psychotic.
That is not a rookie move.
That's psychotic.
That's something else.
It's normal. It's normal.
Normal.
Yeah, I've done it. I'm not wearing socks right now.
You are not normal,
What kind
Freddie.
of shoes are you wearing?
I'm wearing my Skechers without socks.
But when you have your Jordans on, what do you do?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have Jordans.
You do have a pair of
I'm not
Jordans.
highfalutin like that.
Juju bought you a pair of Jordans.
Oh, yeah, those. They're in a museum. You know, I don't dare wear them because they're Jordans.
Game room of curios.
You also have the Wu-Tang Jordans, so you have multiple pairs of Jordans.
I've never gotten those. They're around here somewhere.
I saw you try them on.
I know, but now they're around here, so I want them.
Okay.
The Wu-Tangs.
Oh, those are gone. You're not familiar with how people work
I
around
know.
here? You will never see those again.
That's what I mean.
The
Christopher's probably wearing them right now.
I got my own.
The one thing that I learned at Radio Row that made me wince about football is I learned that Walter Payton played the entirety of his career not wearing socks inside of the cleats because he liked to run with bare feet. And I was like, I can't imagine what those feet look like.
Or smell like.
I can't. The
socks.
To
what they looked like. God rest his feet.
God rest his feet, indeed.
Yep.
You said it like he's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
Do I get $50 from the fine bucket for keeping him still alive
right.
instead of killing him?
It is opposite day.
I think.
I don't want to see what his feet look like right now, 20 years later.
Greg thinks that the Eagles taught everyone a lesson. They taught the entire sport a lesson. What is that lesson, Greg?
We've alluded to it earlier. The lesson is offensive line and defensive line are fundamentally the most
obvious thing.
The Parcells lesson.
So that's the lesson, the most obvious thing.
No, I think
Hold on, let's hear him out. Come on, Freddie, go.
I think it's quite the opposite of the most obvious thing. In the age when the Dolphins think it's all about getting Tyreek Hill and a quarterback, teams are so quarterback obsessed, particularly in the age when all quarterbacks except Tua run the ball. You downplay the value of an offensive line. I think the Eagles have gone the opposite direction on both lines, which is not obvious because most NFL teams haven't done it, and that's why everybody's looking up at
I love when we strike a nerve. It's so
He's
obvious.
spicy.
It's ridiculous to say that's obvious when throughout the league,
you're right,
it's
Greg.
not obvious.
Yep.
Name another team.
No one does it as well, but everyone would acknowledge the most important part of football is the trenches.
Okay,
Like,
then why don't they act like it?
Because there's not that many great players.
Name another team
Name another one.
whose 3 of 5 top salaries go to offensive line.
Name one.
Name that
I would think
team.
the Lions maybe with Sewell.
No.
And
Three out of 5? I don't think so.
Right.
No.
It's a pretty good offensive line.
But I'm saying, I
pretty
know
good.
the guy, the D lineman that got hurt, he makes a ton of money.
The point is, it's not obvious because most teams aren't doing it. Most teams are not committing. You don't see offensive linemen you see a couple of offensive linemen a year go in the first round. People aren't committed to it.
Greg Cote is spicy today, okay, because ESPN has ranked its 59 Super Bowl winners. And,
Oh, boy.
And Greg Cote does not like where the perfect Dolphins have landed.
Number one.
Are they in the
Have to
bottom
be.
9?
Well, Shula would be spinning in his grave.
Right.
That to his dying
Spinning, turning?
To his dying day, the one thing that really rankled Don Shula was the underappreciation of the only undefeated team in history, and that underappreciation continues. The 72 Dolphins, among 59 Super Bowl winners, are ranked right in the middle, 24th.
Ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Yep.
It's
Crazy.
absolutely absurd. And I'm not even being a homer here. There's one team in history that won all of their games, and that's the 24th best league champion in the Super Bowl era? No, it doesn't make any sense.
Lions were pretty close for what it's worth. 2 of their top 5 are offensive linemen, left tackle and center. You have to go down to number 7 for Penei Sewell, though.
Okay. But there are many, 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 many teams. I would say, dare say, perhaps the other 30, or at least 25 of the other 30, don't have any high-paid offensive linemen in terms of top 5 salaries.
Well, I mean, Cleveland has half of their top 6 being offensive linemen.
I mean, you don't know anything about what you're talking about, and you have the nerve to call up here and say to me that we're trying to upsell the Falcons to you? Sir, you're not a Falcon fan. You haven't been. And if you have been, you don't know what you're looking at.
Stop being a homer, bro. Get out of my
I'm the last one who's a homer. Don't you ever call me a homer. Who the hell do you think has been saying the truth since 1973 on Atlanta radio? Who?
Who needs me?
You're Bo Bach.
I'll take that. I don't. You know what? Being called a homer is not the worst insult I've ever heard. So I don't care. Call me a homer.
Thankfully, though, when Greg Cote says that Don Shula is spinning in his grave or turning in his grave or whatever, Billy and Stugotz were in New Orleans, and they conducted a 2-hour seance that is presently being edited for God Bless Football.
Tell everybody the secrets. Danny. Sometimes just surprise people.
I want to know how that turned out.
A 2-hour seance. So I am here to say that Billy and Stugotz, and this is why God Bless Football is the #1 football podcast in America 3 of the last 4 years, successfully exhumed the spirit of...
there's no way to know.
Yeah. All right, attempted to successfully...
We talked to Bloody Mary for 2 hours.
Whoa. Well, you did. I wasn't there.
That's true.
2 hours. They went and talked in New Orleans, where you can experiment with voodoo and seance and spirits and death, and it's above sea level.
Well, I opened up the thing, American cities above sea level, and there's mixed reporting on New Orleans. Like this site says that they're 6 feet below sea level here. Yeah,
that is correct. Their cemeteries are above sea level, but barely.
Well, I don't think they're above sea. I think they're just above ground.
That's correct, because there is no beneath ground. It's just the sea.
Well, there is beneath ground. It's just below sea level. You can dig. It's not impossible to dig.
Not very much, though. Not very.
I could dig.
You used to be able to dig deeper.
Not very deep.
At your show, I met a man who sent me a shovel in the mail. Because one time we were talking about, and he came up to me and he goes, I don't know if you ever got this, but years ago, I mailed you a shovel. And I said, sir, I did get that shovel. And for 3 years, I've been wondering who sent me said shovel. And I'm glad I met you. And it was his birthday. It was his birthday. And his wife said to me, you know what? I've been trying to get him to retire, but he's never going to retire because he keeps doing things like mailing people shovels.
I didn't know you could mail a shovel.
Yeah, he figured out how. Yeah, oh man, what a shovel it is too, Greg. I'll tell you what.
It was a gold plated or anything?
No, but it has the pointed the head on the shovel. It's not one of those shovels that you just move dirt around with the flathead shovels.
Sure.
Get out of here. Who needs those?
Yeah, who needs it?
Mm-hmm.
Who needs me?
There you go.
By the way, when you reached Shula, did you find him in a good mood? Because he could be very cantankerous.
He was cranky.
Well,
yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
You weren't there.
I know.
I look forward to it.
Sources told me.
Wow.
It's going to be a good interview.
There's a lot of, or actually there aren't a lot of U.S. cities that are below sea level. Most of them in California, Dan, if you knew that.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be above sea level.
Yeah, that's what some are saying.
Valentine's Day is coming up, and for me, there's only one place I trust, 1-800-Flowers.com. Every year, I order stunning, high-quality bouquets from 1-800-Flowers that my grandma absolutely loves.
Jessica, holy, I got the most gorgeous roses. I don't think I ever got that many roses in my whole life. Certainly not from your lovely grandfather. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you. You made my day. I mean, they are gorgeous. Never had so many roses in my whole life. 85 years. Holy
And this year, we're partnering with 1-800-Flowers to make sure you're a Valentine's hero with an exclusive offer for Le Batard listeners. Double the roses for free. When you buy 1 dozen, they'll double your bouquet to 2 dozen roses. It's the perfect way to say I love you without breaking the bank. All roses from 1-800-Flowers are picked at their peak, cared for every step of the way, and shipped fresh to ensure lasting beauty. To claim your double your roses offer, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/Dan. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/Dan.
Hey folks, it's Mike Ryan. It is big game week. And I've got just the thing to make your big game time a Miller time. From fireside conversations to football Sundays, winter means more moments with the coolest people in your life. Make these moments even better with Miller Lite, the great tasting light beer for people who love beer. A new year is a perfect time for friends, family, and great tasting light beer. Tastes like Miller time. Miller Lite is brewed for taste. It hits different than other light beers, so when you're hosting your ultimate game day party, why don't you bring out a beautiful silver platter of that amazing white can and know you will make everybody there happy, because Miller Lite is the original light beer since 1975 and still the very best one. Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. Go to MillerLite.com/Dan to find delivery options near you, or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. Tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.